But hello! Hello, everybody! Hello and welcome! If you want to stay up to date on the stream and when I'm streaming and where I'm performing and just my overall life in general and all the other nonsense, you can follow me on Instagram. It's a minefield of not influencer life. If you subscribe to my Twitch and slide into my DMs, I'll mail you a sticker. I think that's all of the background stuff that's not directly related to what's happening here right now. Okay, so Coheed and Cambria is this awesome band. They started back in the 90s, but they really hit it in the early 2000s, and they started touring with Warped Tour and doing smaller tours with other pop punk bands, and they made a name for themselves in the pop punk world, but also the prog rock world, and also kind of in the metal world. And they took a lot of influences from those rock god bands of the 70s and 80s. And they took all of that inspiration and they blended it into this bananas thing that we're currently in the middle of. So, Coheed and Cambria, band, great. Very good. We like them. What you may not know is that all of their albums have companion comic books called the Amory Wars, because it's based in this giant sci-fi universe where the main characters, Coheed and Cambria, are like kicking butt and taking names and trying to save the universe. And then in 2010, when they released the album Year of the Black Rainbow, instead of releasing a comic book to go along with it, they released a novel, and the novel is the prequel to all of the comic books. And that's what we're reading right now. If you've been here before, you've heard that whole spiel, but I feel like for the people who've never been here before, that spiel is important because I know a lot of people who really like Coheed and Cambria the band, and they've never heard of the Amory Wars or anything about the comics. And they're just like, it's a good band and they have weird lyrics because bands are weird, which is also true and completely valid. We've talked about the band. We've talked about the comic books. Let's talk about the book. Shortened recap. There's a universe called Heaven's Fence. Heaven's Fence consists of 78 planets. They're connected by an energy called the Keywork. There's some mages, and the mages are like big, scary demon guys with shoulder horns, and they're not really demons. They're like the popes, and they watch over the things. Wilhelm Ryan becomes a mage, decides to kidnap or kill all the other mages because he wants to fight God. They're the prize. The prize are angels. They're supposed to only watch the heavens, but after Wilhelm Ryan beats up all the mages, then one of the prize comes down and touches Dr. Hohenberger, who's a big deal, in the forehead. Dr. Hohenberger's son died at one of the rallies. Oh no. And he's mourning and he's very sad. So Paranoia, the prize, goes down and touches Dr. Hohenberger and is like, yo, you need to stop Wilhelm. You gotta stop Ryan. And Dr. Hohenberger's like, bet. So Dr. Hohenberger creates 3 beings, 3 IRO-bots named Inferno, Knowledge, and the Beast. Well, Inferno, Coheed, and Cambria. And then the 3 IRO-bots go and fight Wilhelm Ryan, and Wilhelm Ryan's upset about that. So Wilhelm Ryan kidnaps Dr. Hohenberger's wife, Pearl, trapped, puts her in a coffin, and then sends his little commander man to go talk to Dr. Hohenberger, and it gives him an ultimatum that is like, hey, either we kill your wife or you work on the Monstar Virus with us for me so that I can fight God and then I can be God. Bam. The 1-minute book recap. I did it. Ha ha. Anyway, I'm excited to get into chapter 14. I do like how approachable chapter 13 was. Also, hello to everybody who showed up during chapter 13. Hello, world. If you're new here and you want to tune in, we stream every Tuesday at 8:13 p.m. We go through a few chapters of the book and we talk about all the other things that are going on in life. So we're here. And we're ready. Year of the Black Rainbow by Claudio Sanchez with Peter David. Chapter 14. Everything You Love. You summoned me, sir? Said Inferno. Something got into my eye, and now I can't see. It's the syringe. No, the syringe is the size of a bird. Okay, wait. Before we start chapter 14, can we talk about how the syringe took down a bird and it is the size of a small bird? Like, he said it was a sparrow or something, but even a sparrow is like the size of my hand. A small sparrow is the size of my hand. Wingspan, like my whole hand. And the syringa is the size of the small sparrow, and just like, I don't want to meet that bug. I don't want that bug to be filled with viruses. That seems like a bad idea. It seems like a bad, scary idea. Wonder where that cockroach in my sink went. Anyway. Year of the Black Rainbow by Claudio Sanchez with Peter David. Chapter 14. Everything You Love. You summoned me, sir? Said Inferno. The KBI had been remaining where they were, as per Hohenberger's orders. It had not been easy for Inferno to keep the beast reined in. Coheed had been desperate to do exactly what he'd been advocating for days. Take the fight to Raine. Go smashing around with the subtlety of an avalanche, and try to determine through force of arms and righteousness of anger where Pearl was, and effect a rescue that would doubtless leave the object of the mission dead. Yes, I did, said Hohenberger. He was in his study, seated behind his desk, his fingers steepled in a contemplative manner. He seemed to be looking inside himself rather than at Inferno. I need you to report to the Grail Arbor. The Grail Arbor was one of the most formidable weapons in the KBI's arsenal against Wilhelm. Leonard had woken one day to find Inferno missing from the makeshift training facility he had established. The next day, Inferno had returned in a shuttle vessel informing Hohenberger that the Augustus, a group of aliens— There are aliens! Ah! There's aliens! We haven't heard about aliens. The prologue didn't even talk about aliens. Are aliens in Heaven Spence or aliens from other universes? No, I don't know there's aliens now. I'm so excited. I'm so excited about aliens. Sorry. I've got to collect myself. The Grail Arbor was one of the most formidable weapons in the KBI's arsenal against Wilhelm Raine. Leonard had woken one day to find Inferno missing from the makeshift training facility he had established. The next day, Inferno had returned in a shuttle vessel informing Hohenberger that the Augustus, a group of aliens off-world, had given him the ship. He recounted the tale to the doctor. The mages and people of Heaven's Fence weren't the only victims of Ryan's hostile takeover. Sector 11, a more progressive part of Heaven's Fence, had been a melting pot of race and culture, welcoming in the displaced masses, including the Augustus, who'd moved there when their planet was destroyed by a hypernova. When Ryan took Sector 11's ruling mage prisoner during the wars, he was disgusted by the presence of the alien races, deeming them impure and confining them to camps until he could determine what should be done with them. Some had escaped off-world and jumped at the chance to share the Grail Arbor as a quiet contribution to the fight against the man who had cast them from their homes. The Arbor, for security reasons and to elude the detection by Ryan, had remained consistently on the move, but Inferno remained connected to the vessel at all times and could at will summon the shuttle pod that would return him to it. Why? Said Inferno. Do you have a mission that you wish to send us on? With the slightest touch of hope, which was about as much emotion as Inferno would allow himself to display, he said, Do you have any news on Mrs. Hohenberger's whereabouts? No. I simply require that you remain on station. Until? Until I say otherwise. He spoke so matter-of-factly that it would have seemed to anyone else that there was nothing wrong. Inferno, however, was not anyone else. He was, to all intents and purposes, Hohenberger's doppelganger, and it often seemed that there was nothing the doctor could say or do that Inferno would not anticipate. Doctor, what are you not telling me? Hohenberger did not reply at first. Then, in measured tones, he said, What I am not telling you is beside the point, Inferno. All that matters is what I am telling you, and that is that you are going to return to the Grail Arbor and remain on station until I give you your next assignment. Seeing that there was no point in trying to push Hohenberger further on it, Inferno nodded and said, I will inform Coheed and Cambria to join me in. They will be staying here. Inferno's back stiffened. Here? Yes, here. Doctor, I must ask again, and I must tell you again that I have my reasons and you are not to question them, Inferno. Is that clear? Yes, but— No, there is no but after that sentence. Either it is clear or it is not. If it is clear, then there is nothing more to discuss. If it is not, then there is something wrong with your ability to process information. Now, do as I say. There is much that Inferno wanted to say in response. If he had said it, perhaps matters would have worked out differently, and lives would not have been destroyed. But he said nothing other than, Yes, sir. He bowed slightly at the waist and walked out of the house. Coheed and Cambria were waiting for him. What did he want? Said Coheed. He could not keep the anticipation from his voice. Does he have a lead on Pearl? Does he wants me to return to the Grail Arbor. And what? For what? I have no idea. I suppose I will find out. We will all find out. Coheed bristled at the idea. That's not right. He can't just order you around. He can do exactly that, said Inferno. It's not my job to second guess him, but to trust him, as we all must. Do you really believe that? Said Coheed. Or are you just saying that to convince yourself? There was a familiar noise from overhead. It was the LEO from the Grail Arbor descending to pick up Inferno and return him to his ship. The KBI watched the pod touch down, and then Inferno looked from the pod to his compatriots. A bit of both, actually, he said, and then strode into the pod. The door irised closed, and moments later, the pod was airborne. Coheed and Cambria were alone. This is wrong, said Coheed firmly. This is wrong. He shouldn't be sending Inferno away. He shouldn't. We have to trust the doctor to do the right thing. Trust can be betrayed, Cam. You know that as well as I. He paused and then said, What did you talk to the doctor about? Yesterday, when you told Inferno and me to go out and you stayed with him in the lab. It was private. I'd like to know. I said, I heard you, damn it. But he pulled back on his temper, closing his eyes, steadying himself, and then he said more softly, It's nice that you can trust the doc. It's just a goddamn shame that you can't trust me the same way. I do. No, you don't. She sighed and lowered her head, seeming to have suddenly taken a great interest in studying the tops of her boots. I told him that he should trust what he's feeling in regards to saving Pearl. And you believe that? Yes. I'm beginning to understand the concept of love, Coheed. I was excited to read about them falling in love, and I don't know if I'm excited anymore. Which is an odd thing for someone who calls herself knowledge to believe, considering everything you do comes from up here. And he tapped her forehead. Not everything, she said, and she stepped forward, her closeness catching him off guard. Do you feel everything you do revolves around bloodshed, as your name suggests? Absolutely not. The air between them was overwhelmingly magnetic. They awkwardly fell into each other's arms, their lips coming together softly at first, entirely unsure of themselves. They had the shaky, unadulterated look of young love as they shared their first kiss of both of their lives. They pulled apart for a moment, gasping for air. Slow down, beast, Cambria whispered, and their gazes locked before their lips came together once more, this time a bit more steady. The sensation was brand new for the couple, the first perception of passion becoming too much for Coheed's programming to handle. And they're robots. Instantly, he yanked his left arm away from her, just in time as the machete blade snapped out. She saw what happened and her eyes widened. Then she put her hands over her mouth and giggled. He never felt quite so embarrassed. He concentrated and the blades were withdrawn into his arm. I'm sorry, he said, because he didn't really know what else to say under those circumstances. It's okay. I know. She approached him again and placed a dozen smaller kisses across his face and neck. He closed his eyes and took it all in, pulling up his shirt as she did hers, in an effort to be as close to her as possible, to feel their bare chests flatten together until they nearly melted into a single being. The spell was broken by a loud harumph. Cambria was most definitely not the source. They jumped back from each other, Cambria yanking down her shirt and blushing furiously. Coheed stood there with his shirt rolled up just under his armpits, and Cambria quickly pulled it down to cover him. Hohenberger was standing in the doorway of the house, some yards distant. His face was impassive. Presuming the two of you can tear yourselves away from each other, I have a need of you. Come here, please. Coheed and Cambria exchanged looks. There was something in the doctor's voice that signaled that they should be concerned, but disobeying him didn't really seem like an option. What's the problem, Doctor? Said Coheed cautiously. No problem. I have an assignment for you. If we have an assignment, shouldn't Inferno be a part of it? Not this one. This one will require just the two of you. Yes, Doctor, said Cambria. Coheed was still hesitant, even as Cambria smoothed the front of her shirt and started towards Hohenberger. The doctor went back into the house as Coheed drew up alongside her and took her by the hand. She stopped and looked up at him questioningly. Something's going on, he said. Something's always going on. I mean with the doc. Something that just isn't right. I know it, and I think you know it too. I know that Dr. Hohenberger needs us, she said, and I need you. He placed his other hand atop hers so that they unfolded it. Cam, I love you. Yes, I figured that out. And you love me. Don't tell me you don't, because we both know that's crap. I wasn't trying to keep it a secret anymore. I kissed you, remember? I remember, and if something happened to you, Co, she said gently, we risk our lives going up against forces that want nothing except to annihilate us. You can't start worrying about something happening to me. We put our lives on the line all the time. That's what we're born for. Besides, nothing's going to happen to me. No, it won't, because I'm going to be right there with you. And if the doc tries to hurt you, you're not serious, Coheed, she said. You're saying you'd turn against Dr. Hohenberger? I'll turn against anyone who tries to hurt you. I just wanted you to know that, because if we go in there and he tries something, you'll kill him. I'll do what I have to do. And his voice trembled, I know you care about the doc, especially after what happened with his wife. And I just want to know that you won't hate me if I have to, defend you. I can take care of myself. But with her free hand, she reached up and stroked his bearded chin. Don't worry, because I could never hate you. That's good to know. He kissed her gently on the forehead and then squeezed her hand once more to show strength and support. Together, they strode into the house. Hohenberger was waiting for them. He had seen them coming together outside, caught up in the throes of passion. How amazing it must have been for them, how raw those emotions that they were both experiencing for the first time. You never forget first love. In his mind's eye, Hohenberger could still see his. It hadn't been Pearl, that was certain. They hadn't met until graduate school. No. Leonard's first love was a tall blonde that he had first encountered when just beginning secondary education. She was gorgeous, with legs that seemed to go all the way up to her neck. Up until that point, Leonard had been so disinterested in girls that his parents thought he was asexual, and everyone else figured he was into guys. And then he had spotted her coming down the hallway, heading from one class to the next, chatting with her friends. She laughed with a toss of her head in such a way that her hair had surged around her face, as if it had a life of its own. Leonard had come to a dead halt. It was like a switch had been flipped within him. He forgot to breathe. If the beating of his heart hadn't been an automatic reflex, he would have forgotten to maintain that as well, and he would have keeled over on the spot. If he had done so, at least she would have noticed him. As it happened, she didn't spot him at all. For the rest of his secondary education career, he never worked up the nerve to approach her. Hopelessly shy during that time, far preferring the world of academics to the world of percolating teen hormones. Anytime he even considered addressing her, his mouth went completely dry. To this day, from time to time, he would sometimes contemplate what his life might have been like if he'd ever had the nerve to speak to the beautiful blonde and tell her exactly what she meant to him. Would she have been a positive influence on him? A negative one? Would she have let him down because his expectations of her were not based on any true knowledge of her personality, but rather his own imagined version of her? He would never know. All he knew for sure was her name, one that was so permanently lodged in his mind, and he was sure that even if he lost all his faculties, he would still remember that. Camille, he said. The instant he said it, Coheed and Cambria collapsed, hitting the floor heavily and lying there unmoving. Camille, he said. The instant he said it, Coheed and Cambria collapsed, hitting the floor heavily and lying there unmoving. At that moment, if Hohenberger had instructed Coheed to engage his arm cannon, aim it at Cambria and blow her head off, he would have done so without hesitation. He would have stared at her decapitated body as her blood poured onto the floor, and he would have felt absolutely nothing. Hohenberger nodded, pleased that the failsafe had worked flawlessly, since, if it had not, then he hadn't been sure exactly what his next move was going to be. There had been no failsafe word installed in Inferno. He hated to admit it, but he hadn't thought of it when he created the first of the three beings who would become the KBI. But when he had first begun engaging Inferno, who was as close to a clone of himself as he was going to produce, it quickly became evident to him that Inferno was his own man. Fortunately, most of his views of the world matched up with the doctor's, but Leonard realized that there was no guarantee that the next model, or the next, might likewise be in accord with him. Once Inferno was joined by the beast and knowledge, there was no real guarantee that Hohenberger would be able to control his creations, particularly if something went horribly wrong and they were taken over by very malignant forces that they were designed to combat. And so he decided to correct that oversight when it came time to program Coheed and Cambria. A simple word, an unusual one they would not likely encounter in their day-to-day battle against Wilhelm Ryan. but one that would instantly sap their intellect and will if spoken. If the word was spoken again, it would bring them out of their paralysis, and they would remember nothing of what happened while they were under its spell. Hohenberger managed to haul Coheed into the lab and wrestle him upon the gurney. Cambria, the lighter of the two, was easier. An assortment of tubes hung nearby, attached to a variety of intravenous bags. On the metal lab table beside the pair sat the object of the hour, a gelatinous cube completely enveloping a human heart, its ventricles poking out through the substance like a porcupine. Coheed and Cambria lay upon their backs, staring blankly at the ceiling. Every so often, one of them would blink, and they did so oddly, closing their lids, keeping them closed for exactly 2 seconds, and then opening them again. It was as if they were blinking in slow motion. Other than that, and their very slow breathing, there was nothing to indicate they were alive. Hohenberger had a plan, but it was a plan conceived in hurry and desperation. There were any number of factors that he could not account for, and there was a distinct chance that things could go tragically, horribly wrong. Why not? They had so far. That's the end of the chapter. That's the end of chapter 14. Oh no. Anyway, the thing that serious nerd bro discussion thing that I wanna talk about, because I've always been confused by this. Something that I've noticed about guys, more so guys than girls. Girls sound off. Tell me if I'm wrong. But like, what is this first love idea? But it's not somebody you actually know. And then you dwell on it for the rest of your lives. And sometimes you do actually know them, and sometimes you do actually end up dating them. But then even though you break up and you were kids or whatever, I mean, probably kids, probably middle school, high school, and then like still for the rest of your life, you're like, the one, whoever the one is. Every dude I know has like the first one, and it was more magical and brain defying than any other romantic relationship could ever be. Like one of my exes, his one, what's her name? I don't remember. He had it tattooed on his body a whole bunch. Like everybody's got the one, and it confuses me. And I don't think I can remember the first person I ever had a crush on. And I remember my first boyfriend, and he's fine, but like I don't romanticize that relationship at all. I can't think of any of my past relationships, even the ones that ended amicably, that I'm like, that one defined everything. Like, I mean, you learn stuff from them, but I don't get it. Can somebody explain to me this first love thing? Like, why do you do that? The idea that implants on your brain at a young age from film, books, etc., and then first relationships, they cling to that, was more positive than negative. I mean, yeah, everybody rewrites history. I do think that sorry, now my hair is done. Everybody rewrites history, so everybody, most of the time, you remember more of the good stuff than the bad stuff. That's just how the brain works. It's a survival mechanism, unless you're specifically trying to make something seem worse than it was. Okay, so Professor Simeon, as a dude, what is the obsession with the first love? Whether or not like you knew them or dated them, or there's just somebody you saw. Like Dr. Hohenberger had this whole flashback about Camille and how she was his first love, which makes no sense to me because he didn't even talk to her. So like, I don't understand the obsession. That's all I'm saying, is I don't get this thing that especially guys do where they're like, it's the first one I ever fell in love with, therefore she defines everything. And there's this weird romanticism of it, as if it would have been perfect or amazing or fantastic. And like, I know so many more men who've done this, especially with women from their like middle school, high school era, than women. And I don't understand. I'm just saying, I can't, especially from middle school, high school era, I cannot think of any of those people that I had a crush on. I don't romanticize any of those people where I'm like, oh yeah, that was the one. That was the guy. First love tends to get set to the mold of what you would expect from others. I was a 5 foot tall petite elf girl who sang like an angel and had stunning eyes. I know. No, the thing is, I know, Professor Simeon, you're not an outlier in this like term of people I know who've had like dudes, especially that I've known, who've had this like middle school dream girl. Shaped my life for years. Your mom thought of her as competition, that we'd never meet again. Yeah, no, I trust me. I don't, like I said, I don't understand it. I don't know, man. I can't think of anybody that I had a crush on in middle school or high school that I then put faith or notion into of like, this is what a love person is. This is what love is. It is first love. I would love to get more, I know this is not my standard chat, but like, I'd love to get more feminine input as to first love stuff. Oh, and then that also makes you wonder, am I anybody's first love? Like, did anybody meet me in middle school or high school? It was like that thing. I'm going to base all of my romantic interests on that crazy goblin, because that's going to be healthy. The fantasy, because it's inaccessible. I guess that kind of makes sense. Fantasy's cool. I'm so sorry. Okay, to all of the guys from my middle school and high school who based all of the romantic notions on who I am. It's me. I'm sorry. It was a bad idea, because obviously I didn't notice you. High school and middle school were such weird times. I didn't really date in high school and middle school. I do remember my first like official boyfriend in high school, but like I don't romanticize him. His name was Will, and he was nice. Like that was my first kiss. It's fine. I mean, you hear about those, we've known each other for 2 months and we're getting hitched stories, and then a year or two later it's over. Those good feels from the brain are like, nah, yeah, good luck. So I understand that romanticism too of oh, I understand new relationship energy quite well. My brain does that beautifully. My brain makes all sorts of new relationship energy feelings. It does them very effectively and creates all sorts of ridiculous situations in my life. But I'm okay with that, and I've learned how to temper those and just like embrace those feelings, because they're good feelings. But I don't think I've ever taken any of those feelings and then imprinted them on my brain as to like, this is the one thing that love is supposed to be. You can tell that Dr. Hohenberger is still like, dude, Camille, she's the dream, the thing. I know my brother had one of those girls. Dad had one of those girls. I've got lots of guy friends who've got one of those girls. I'm really sorry if any of my guy friends made me one of those girls. Because don't, especially middle school, high school me, that was a horrible idea. I actually connected her when I was in my 30s. She had grown into a very different, somewhat broken. We had no chemistry. That resolved it for me. Hohenberger needs to meet Camille again. Same, totally. It's not like I chat about Pogs endlessly for months. Hey, man, don't. Why are you putting our personal business on the internet? I do know some of the songs are about Camille. Camille shows up in the lyrics often. So that's a thing. What a nice skeleton. It was a nice skeleton. And I knew that you would use it, and I gave it to you for you, because I wasn't using it. It had lived on a cookie sheet on a bookshelf. But those are different stories for different days. That reminds me, if you go to the Coheed and Cambria website, you will notice that they added more tour dates, which is super exciting for me, because I was looking at the DC and the Richmond show, which I'm still curious about because they're earlier in the summer, but they added dates in Harrisburg. And one of the things about the dates in general was that all of the really cool ticket packages were already sold out on the dates that I could see. And so they added a show in Harrisburg, which is about 2 hours from me, and they still had the super fancy packages. So I did a thing. I splurged and I spent more money than I should have on super fancy package ticket. Just for me. I'm going to go alone. So I got the Mage package in Harrisburg on August 30th, and I'm very excited. So come out to the Harrisburg show or check their websites to see if there's any show that you want to see. And maybe I'll catch some of the other shows throughout the summer. We'll see what happens. If you want more Coheed in your life, but you're not sure if you like their music, you should check out the playlist that I made. I put it in a link on the YouTube VODs. It's a Spotify playlist. It's public. It's basically 2 hours worth of songs that I think are good and kind of go together. And if you listen to it in order, there is a method to the madness. And then if you like the songs or you get into concepts of the songs that you really get into, then check out those albums and do the deep dive and listen to the concept pieces that are these crazy epic space battles of Coheed and Cambria. They're good. If you want to tune in live to the stream, we stream on Tuesdays at 8:13 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Twitch, which is twitch.tv/bizarre_Bryn. If you want to stay up to date on my Twitch or my life or my performances, you can follow me on Instagram, which is @bizarre_Bryn. And if you want to stay up to date on the VODs, which is the slightly edited version of these things, less a little bit more straightforward, some chat banter, but usually not as much chat banter, then you can check it out on YouTube. And that's the one thing that has a different screen name than my other stuff, because it's youtube.com/Brynna. And the funniest part about that is one of my viewers recently texted me, viewer/friends. She texted me, she's like, I want to watch the recorded VODs while I'm at work, but I can't find them. She's like, I found Bizarre Bryn, but there's just a bunch of contortion videos there. And I was like, yes, because I'm a monster. And I put the edited VODs on my personal page and not my contortion page for reasons. If you want to see me perform live, go to some of the World Oddities Exos. I'm almost definitely at those. I'm at a lot of them. So be sure to check that out if you're into buying weird stuff and you want to see a show of people doing weird stuff. If you like the stream and the videos, please throw a like on them and comment and subscribe. Subscriptions are cool. And if you want to, share it with your friends. If you've got deep nerd friends who like Coheed and Cambria or audiobooks or sci-fi or fantasies or robots falling in love, and YouTube subscriptions are free. All you have to do is click the subscribe button and click that little notification bell, and then your phone will send you notifications when I post new VODs so that you can stay up to date without having to listen to me ramble for 15 minutes about what's gone on in the book so far, because you'll just have heard the chapter. Take care of yourselves and have a good night. I'll see you next week, and we'll see what happens to the passed out Coheed and Cambria. I'm so nervous. Okay, I love you. Bye. Aw, Astro did have the love of the Black Rainbow in him. I don't know where I'm going with this sentence. I didn't freeze. I'm just glitching in my brain.